Okay, so a very, very warm welcome to this session. Just before we kick off, one or two pieces of Zoom housekeeping. So if you could please keep yourselves muted while we're talking, that would be really wonderful. There will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. In fact, if you come up with questions while we're talking, feel free to drop them into the chat. But if you can keep yourselves muted, that would be really helpful. It just keeps the disturbance down. And the other thing is, as you've probably just noticed, this is being recorded. So if you would prefer to keep your camera off for that reason, then you are very welcome to. So I think that is all that I need to say. And we can kick off. So,
okay.
Who are we? Um, so my name's Jackie, and with Vikki, we are long COVID breathing. I was sick with COVID in March 2020, and it took me just under 3.5 years to recover. I am now fully recovered. And my story as related to breathing is that actually, in hindsight, I was a dysfunctional breather before I got ill. And then getting sick obviously massively exacerbated that. But breathing for me was the first thing and one of the most important things that I found to help me with my symptoms. So that was where my breathing journey started. So I will hand over to Vikki to tell you about her.
Hi, everybody. My name's Vikki Jones, and I got COVID in July 2020. But unfortunately, I'm not fully recovered and still deal with various symptoms. But the biggest thing that has made a change in my 3+ years of long COVID is learning how to breathe properly. And I was very fortunate that after about 9 months of long COVID, I stumbled upon a couple of breathing classes. Unfortunately, they were all way too difficult for me. My breathing was really compromised by long COVID. And but as a personal trainer, I knew fundamentally that breathing would help me. But I also realized that breathing exercises needed to be compromised or modified, I'm sorry, for people that have long COVID, because we are not the norm. And Oxygen Advantage and Butico, which are both run by Patrick McEwen, was the first breathing program that listened both to Jackie and myself. They listened, they were inquisitive, they were compassionate, they were curious about what was going on with long haulers. And we attached ourselves to them and lapped up everything we could learn about breathing exercises, and then we modified it for ourselves. And now we have been able to share it with other people. And that's why we're so excited to be able to teach these courses and teach these webinars, because as far as we know, there's nothing else like this out there. All right, this is me. So we're going to get started with a breathing exercise. We promised you 3 breathing exercises that would really help calm you down. Before we get started, it's really important that you understand that neither Jackie and I we're not doctors, we're not medically trained, and you need to do these things at your own pace. If you feel any discomfort, please just return to your usual breathing rhythm. But it's our hope that by using these nasal breathing exercises that you will certainly feel more calm. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to start by sitting up nice and straight. So posture is very important when we breathe, because we want the air going down into our lungs, and to a certain extent we want our diaphragm being used when we're breathing, because the diaphragm is the breathing muscle. So once you're sitting up straight, I'd like you also to close your mouth and also close your eyes. So once you've closed your mouth, put your tongue on the roof of your mouth and make a popping sound like I'm doing now. It's something we used to do when we were children. And then stop. Put your tongue in the position it was at the beginning of the pop. And also keep your teeth apart. So that position that your tongue is in and that your mouth is in is the correct position for nasal breathing. That's the way you should be throughout the day. So now we're going to go into a very easy breathing exercise. So take your hand and put it on your upper chest. And with your eyes closed, what I'd like you to do is just feel the air going in through your nose and then exhaling out through your nose. So you're going to find your own rhythm for breathing. You're probably going to feel your heart rate with your hand, but focus on the breathing as it goes in through your nose as cooler air and out through your nose as warmer air. So one of the things that Jackie and I like to talk about is the rhythm of your breath. And everyone has a very different breathing rhythm. And I want you to focus on what feels good for you. You shouldn't be feeling any kind of air hunger right now. You should literally be watching that breath as it goes in your nose and out your nose. As I said, feeling that quietness of your breath. Hopefully your breath is slowing down a little bit and your mind isn't wandering. So just check in, is your tongue still resting on the roof of your mouth? Are you beginning to feel a little bit calmer? Do you feel a little bit warmer? So these are things that we all look for to see if the breathing that we're doing is appropriate for our body. Now, people with long COVID, it's really important that we do these very easy nasal breathing exercises prior to doing anything else, because we have to be very gentle with ourselves. We have to be gentle with our breathing. So I'm going to allow you just in your own time to breathe just for a few minutes, more, not even a few minutes, just a few more breaths. And then we're going to continue with our little chat. So once again, just observe that air as it comes in and watch it as it leaves your body. And before we talk about what we're going to be covering, I want you to just open your eyes and just see, do you have more saliva in your mouth right now? Do your fingers feel a little bit warmer? Did you notice any grumbling in your stomach? And do you feel a little bit more calm? So those are the things that we look for, because during these nasal breathing exercises, we're trying to shift your body into the parasympathetic nervous state. More about that later. But those are indications that that is happening. So saliva, warmth, digestive gurgling, and a feeling of calmness.
Sorry.
Okay, Jackie, it's all yours.
Ah, this one's me. So what are we going to talk about today? So as Vicky said, we are going to go through 3 exercises to help us to calm our bodies and our minds, one of which we have just done. We're going to talk about why this is important in long COVID. So this is something that Vicky just alluded to, but we're going to go into this in more depth. And then using the breath as a therapy can reduce stress and support healing, which is hugely, hugely important. We're going to talk about sleep and the breath, and we're going to talk about pacing ourselves because this is also super important in long COVID. So, the autonomic nervous system. So, this is hopefully something that you have come across already. But it's certainly not something that I personally had any knowledge of whatsoever before I got sick. I didn't even have the remotest awareness of the fact that we had an autonomic nervous system, let alone how important it was. So, an overview of this. So, our autonomic nervous system has, well, it has 2 branches, but sort of 3. So we have our rest and digest. So this is where our body is safe, socially connected, restful, our digestion is working, all of the good stuff. This is where our body is going to heal. We have our fight and flight. So this is where we go when we have danger, when we need action. And that's not always a bad thing. In fact, it's often not a bad thing, but it becomes a bad thing when we spend too much time there. And then the third one is our freeze or shutdown, which actually, when you look at the nerves, it is part of the healing response. So the two actually are part of the same one. But our freeze, our shutdown, that is where our body goes when it's spent too much time in fight or flight. That is basically like the kind of off switch. What do you call it? It's like a sort of a fuse blowing almost, where it goes, no, we can't take anymore, going into shutdown. And with long COVID, what we find is that we spend too much time in our fight flight and too much time in our shutdown, and we can get very, very stuck there. And why is breathing related to this? Because breathing can change the biochemistry of our body faster than anything else. So this is where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck, so to speak. You really are going to get a quick impact. And what's wonderful about breathing is that it's something that we all do, and it's something that we all have access to. You don't need to go out and buy expensive things in order to work on your breathing. And breathing is also a skill for life. It's something that, you're going to learn to support your recovery. But certainly from my own perspective, my breathing and my life now post long COVID is healthier as a result of having to learn to breathe. So it really is a skill for life. So let's talk about sleep, because this is something that is so important. If we're talking about the body's healing response, then sleep really is where we do a lot of our healing, or it can be. And it's one of the real foundations of health. So with long COVID, it can cause a massive disturbance in our sleep, and we can be sleeping too much. So some people might be sleeping 18 hours a day or more even. And some people will be completely the other end of the spectrum where they just cannot sleep at all. And neither of these is particularly great. And some people will find that they maybe flip between one and the other. So they can't sleep at all, and then they go into sleeping far too much. But what is really important is the quality of our sleep. And this is where breathing comes in. So, with long COVID, all sorts of things can be causing these sleep problems. It could be pain if that's one of your symptoms. It could be anxiety around the fact that you're sick. It could be overstimulation of the sympathetic nervous system, like we were talking about a moment ago. It could also be down to sleep disordered breathing. So if your breathing isn't functional, if you're not breathing well, then this can affect our sleep. So if you are, for example, breathing through your mouth, if you're breathing into your upper chest, if you're breathing shallowly, all of these things can affect our sleep. So how can we improve this? We can improve our overall breathing, which is where we're coming from here. How we breathe through the day is going to have an impact on how we breathe at night. But there's also more that we can do. We talk a lot about nasal breathing during sleep by using mouth tape. It was an absolute game changer for me. Suddenly I realized that I was sleeping with my mouth closed overnight and I woke up feeling refreshed. So that was an absolute massive game changer for me. Other things as well can be really, really powerful though. Things like pre-sleep routines, sleeping in a cool, dark, airy room, reducing screen time before bed, or wearing those blue light filtering glasses, and things like, food and alcohol, not eating or drinking, too soon before you go to bed. Certainly there was a nutritionist that I spoke to that suggested even eating 4 hours before bed, but at least 2. So all of these things can help. Maybe none of them will be the game changer for you, but it's all about little wins. If we can improve things in some way, then that may in turn improve something else, which will have an impact. So talking about stress. So I think when we think about stress, we often don't realize how many different types of stress there can be. So there could be physical stress. So, physically stressing your body by physically doing too much. Cognitive stress, certainly for me, I find reading stressful, doing emails, anything else, that sort of cognitive stuff. Emotional stress, again, if you have family around you at home, it can be really difficult when you're unwell. Having an argument with somebody, I found if I had an argument with my partner, I'd feel terrible for days. And of course, financial stresses, if we're unwell and we can't work. So there's so many different types of stress, and these are going to be different for each individual person. So maybe have a wee think, what are your particular stress triggers? Are you particularly stressed by certain things? Have you maybe identified them already? So what is it that tends to cause you stress? And maybe what is your reaction to that as well? So when you feel stressed, what do you feel in your body? What sensations does that give you? So just have a wee think about that. And when we become stressed in whatever way, our breathing tends to go a certain way. So let's go on from what sensations do you feel when you are stressed, and then focus a little bit more in on the breath. So how do you breathe when you feel stressed? And the sort of breathing patterns that the body will experience during stress and trauma could be most likely your fight or flight. But after a time, we could end up in that shutdown or freeze zone. Things like a faster heart rate, faster or irregular breathing, shallow or upper chest breathing. So that kind of, kind of feeling that we can get in our upper chest when we're getting stressed out. breathing hard, mouth breathing, frequent sighing, and being prone to panic attacks. So these are all things that when our body is experiencing stress is likely to be feeling. And it might be that while you were having a think about what your stress triggers are and what your body feels when it feels those things, you may well have come up with some of the things on that list. You may well have come up with all sorts of other things unrelated to breathing as well. And what is useful when we're thinking about stress is to identify some of those stress triggers, because if we can't remove every single piece of stress from our lives. It would be really wonderful if we could, but it's not really possible. But we can reduce it if we can work out what particular things might be causing that. So there's all sorts of ways to relieve stress. Of course, the focus of this webinar is breathing. So we're going to be focusing on breathing. But there's all sorts of others. I've put a massive long list on here. Things like grounding, massage, acupuncture, cold water was a big one for me, talking therapies, meditation, being in nature, laughing, finding some way to switch off, yoga, social connection, animals, creativity, journaling. The list, there's so many more. I couldn't fit them all on the screen. And perhaps some of you have some of your own strategies that I haven't mentioned. So if you have, feel free to drop them into the chat, because it's always really useful to hear from others about what is working for them, because a lot of things you might not have thought of yourself. So let's talk about stress. So the brain is an incredible thing and is capable of many, many amazing things, one of which is survival. So your brain has this survival mechanism, which is literally designed to keep you alive and safe. So when your brain sees this real or imagined danger, so let me give you an example there. So a real danger, quote unquote, real danger might be, I mean, historically, it was being chased by a lion or a tiger. Or it might be, crossing the road and seeing a car coming. Or it might be a more, quote unquote, imagined danger where you are late for work, or you've had an email from your boss that's made you go, oh my goodness, I didn't do the thing I was supposed to do. Sort of, modern day stresses. And when we sense that, our brain goes, danger, danger. And what happens is it engages our sympathetic nervous system, so our fight and flight response, which makes our parasympathetic, our rest and digest, take a back seat. So we're kind of in this fight flight zone. And when that happens, we see things like breathing increasing, pulse quickening, blood flowing to our vital organs, adrenaline. And this is because our body is thinking we need to run away from danger. So this is going back to the lion and the tiger, needing to run away from it, a very real danger. And then, assuming you've run away from your lion or your tiger, the body would then flip back into the rest and digest, and that would be great. But what happens is that we can get very stuck in this zone if we're under, say, sort of chronic stress of any sort. And what the body struggles to do is to switch off that fight-flight response. So this is why things like breathing can be incredibly important, Because if we find ourselves in that fight flight response, if you have a tiger to run away from, then by all means run away from that tiger. So please don't stop. Please just go run away from that tiger. But if it's a stress that we don't need to run away from, if we can get that intervention, the sooner the better. So something like slow nasal breathing that activates our rest and digest through the vagus nerve and deactivates that fight flight, then that allows us to go back into that nice rest and digest zone where our body is going to recover, recuperate, and allow healing. If we don't intervene, then what can happen is that the body can then slide into shutdown, into that freeze and trauma response. And this is where we might get our chronic fatigue and things like constipation, because our body is literally shut down. It's said, no, we cannot take any more. And the fuse blows. It's like the trip switch. And at that point, it's much harder to get back out again. So this is where it's important, if we can, to intervene sooner. So the sooner we can get that slow nasal breathing going, the quicker and the more likely we are going to be able to get back into our rest and digest zone, and the less likely it is that our body is going to slide back down into that freeze zone, into that trauma response. So moving on, I'm going to pass back over to Vikki.
Okay, so the focus of this webinar is to talk about how you can use your breath to calm yourself in times of stress. So the way that we're going to be doing that is by using our nose, because that is the main function of the nose. So they've actually done a study that says the nose has 30 functions to do with breathing. The mouth has 0. The only reason that you would use your mouth for breathing was if your nose was completely plugged up. So let's just check into what happens to our body when we start using the nose to breathe. So we're going to show you how it will calm your mind. We'll show you how it can improve your sleep. The nose breathing will also help your focus. It will give you good posture. It will help with your recovery, whether it's from long COVID or whether you are able to go out and do a little bit of movement. It will also help lymphatic drainage. So the lymph system moves or shuttles all the stuff around our body. And by breathing through our nose, it enables us to get rid of toxins and also boost our immune system. The other thing it does is by breathing through our nose, we're going to be talking in a minute about the vagus nerve, but by nasal breathing, we're going to be strengthening or increasing something called the heart rate variability. And your heart rate variability is something very unique to you, but it actually indicates how your body will deal with stress. So what we're trying to do by using these breathing exercises is increase our body's resilience to stress. So those little stressors that usually cause us to relapse or crash, we can deal with on a day-to-day basis and leave enough energy to deal with the really big ones that come down the pipe for us. The other thing that the nose does when we're nasal breathing is it keeps you in that parasympathetic. So the down regulator, the one where you're relaxed, the one where you're digesting food. And that is the place of recovery. Your body is not set up to recover when it's in that fight or flight zone that Jackie was just talking about. So what is the perfect breath? It's in and out through your nose. It's slow, it's low, and it's quiet. So those are the ways that we teach to breathe for people with long COVID. So I've talked a little bit about the vagus nerve and why it's so important. So what the vagus nerve is it's the longest nerve in the body, and it wanders throughout our whole body. It starts up in our brainstem, it comes down our ears, down our neck, into our throat, into our heart, into our lungs, pancreas, gallbladder, spleen, kidneys, intestine, stomach. I think you're going to see a pattern here. They are all the organs that are affected by long COVID. So by learning to breathe through your nose, you are strengthening your vagal tone, thereby giving your body's the best chance that it has to recover. So like I said, that vagus nerve, there's a lot of research out there saying that the vagus nerve or our vagal tone in people on COVID is really compromised. So one of the things that we teach our clients is to imagine that we're stimulating our vagus nerve with this nasal breath. So when you breathe slow, just going to go into a little bit of chemistry now, your vagus nerve actually stimulates or releases something called acetylcholine. And what that actually does, thank you, Jackie, stop laughing, is it slows your heart rate down. And this improves your heart rate variability, thus making your body more resilient to stress. So once again, that's why we're teaching this nasal breathing, because we want you to have as much ability and energy to recover from long COVID. Okay. This was a slide that I found that is used actually for military personnel. But by adapting it to people with long COVID, I think we can see that there is a huge similarity in the things that, or the zones that we are in throughout the day on this long COVID journey. So the green zone is actually where we want to be, because that's where we can face the day. It's where you're in a good physical and mental state, you're calm, you're steady, you're confident, and you enjoy life. And we know what it's like when you've got long COVID. The green zone seems to be something that was probably in the past. So the yellow zone is actually what I think of as when you've got long COVID and you are having an okay day. So you're able to get up and move around. You're thinking that your life is going to get back to normal. And the bad thing about yellow is if you stay in it too long, you pop into the orange. And orange I think of as the long COVID zone. This is where you really need to work on your breathing and get external support. And then unfortunately, I think we've all experienced days in the red zone where the anxiety, the pain, the depression that come along with long COVID, we are stuck there. So right now, the reason that I thought this was very important to explain is we need to check in with our bodies to see which zone we're in. You know, if we feel like we're in the yellow zone, that's a great time to do your breathing exercises, but maybe you're not in the orange zone where you need to do the emergency exercises. And as Jackie said, be aware of the stressors that will take you from the yellow maybe to the orange. So this is a important way to sort of self-analyze yourself, and then use the appropriate breathing exercises so that hopefully you can get down to a lower zone. So Jackie, if you can move on to the next slide. So we're now going to go on to the breathing exercises that we talked about to use during the to get you calm. And I've already alluded to what we need to look for in these exercises. How do I know if the breathing exercise that I'm doing is actually working for me? So we've talked about rest and digest and the parasympathetic. So when you increase the saliva in your mouth, your body is actually producing enzymes in your mouth, which then helps digest food, rest and digest. So if after doing these exercises, you feel like you have a little bit more saliva in your mouth, you know that this exercise is working. The same thing with warmer hands and feet. So when we're able to rest, the blood flow and the blood vessels open up throughout your body. If you're in the fight or flight, all the energy is going to your major organs. That's why you get cold hands and cold feet. The tummy rumbling is once again your digestive system working. You may feel a reduction in your symptoms. Sometimes it's good to check in. How am I feeling? Am I feeling a little bit calmer? Have I noticed that my breathing is a little bit easier and my heart rate is slowing down? So all of those things indicate that these breathing exercises are working. Now, it's our hope that you find an exercise that works for you. And we're just exposing you to a couple of the ones that we work with our clients. And they always ask us, which is the best breathing exercise to do? The best breathing exercise for you to do is the one that works for you. We're all very different. We have different symptoms. We have different daily routines. We have different bodies. So the thing is, the exercise that works for you is the one that you are going to go to calm yourself down, because none of these will work if you don't do them. And that's why we're teaching you 3. We want you to be able to explore these exercises and see how you feel. So the sense of calmness that you get from these exercises. So we've already introduced you to the nasal breathing and hopefully the slowing down of your breath and maybe even quietening your breath. But now we're going to go into an emergency exercise. It happens to be my favorite. And it is called many small breath holds. So this exercise can actually be used by everybody. There are no contraindications to anyone doing this exercise. Now, the caveat is, if it doesn't feel good to you, don't do it. But all of these things may feel a little foreign if you haven't done them before. So what this does, many small breath holds, is it really calms down your breathing. So if you have asthma, it's a great exercise. If you have hypertension, it's a great exercise. If you are prone to anxiety and hyperventilation, that upper chest breathing, it will really help calm you down. It is a great exercise for people that have experienced trauma, which we all have. So sometimes it's very difficult when we're in an emergency situation to slow our breathing down. It gets out of control. We go into that panic. and we feel that air hunger and suffocation. So what we want to do is, instead of slowing our breathing down, we want to calm it down. So that's why this exercise works. So we're now going to demonstrate the exercise. Let me just make sure I have anything else to say on my notes. I do have something. These exercises, we're going to demonstrate them now, and hopefully you will feel the benefits of them. But we would recommend that if one of them works for you, you don't wait until you're in an emergency situation before you start trying to use this exercise to calm you. Now, these exercises can be used at any time of the day. They are great before sleep. They're great when you wake up in the morning. It's imperative that you find a way of remembering them so that when you feel yourself popping between a zone, that you can use it. So for me personally, I share it with my husband. He knows to tell me if I'm having a bad day. Vikki, many small breath holds. And he'll talk me through the exercise. He knows it because sometimes my mental capacity to remember these things is out the window. So that's why it's good not to wait and to just keep trying these exercises until you feel the benefit of them. All right. So Jackie is going to be my demonstrator as I talk you through this exercise. Now, this exercise does involve pinching your nose. Jackie, could you show them? That's it, how we pinch our nose. So if that is something that immediately causes anxiety with you, then you don't need to do it. This can be done without pinching your nose. But what you're going to do, and we're all going to just try this exercise as I talk through it, is you are going to do a normal inhale through your nose. You're going to do a normal exhale through your nose. You're going to pinch your nose and hold for 1, 2, 3. And then you're going to inhale through your nose and exhale through your nose and continue to breathe normally in and out through your nose for about 10 seconds. So I can't see any of you, but I hope you're trying this along with us if you feel comfortable. So let's go again. We are going to inhale through our nose, exhale through our nose, pinch our nose, hold for 3, 2, 1. Inhale through your nose and breathe normally for 10 to 15 seconds. So we're not doing a long breath hold. We're literally just pinching and releasing. So let's do this again. We're going to inhale through our nose, exhale through our nose, pinch your nose, hold for 3, 2, 1. Inhale through your nose and continue to breathe normally. So all of these breaths are your normal breath. So we're not doing a huge inhale and a huge exhale. We're just doing a normal inhale, normal exhale. So Jackie's going to go again. We're going to inhale through our nose, exhale through our nose, pinch your nose, hold for 3, 2, 1. Inhale through your nose and continue to breathe normally. So you shouldn't be feeling air hunger. You shouldn't be feeling suffocated. So we're going to do a couple more, and then I'm going to explain to you why this works. So we're going to do an inhale through our nose, exhale through our nose, pinch your nose, hold for 3, 2, 1. Inhale and breathe normally. So before I tell you why this works for our bodies, just check in. Do you have more saliva in your mouth? Do you feel a little bit warmer? do you feel like you're feeling a little bit more calm? So this is absolutely an emergency exercise. And the reason that it works is A, it takes your mind out of your breathing, but by pinching your nose and holding your breath, you are pooling nitric oxide in your nasal passage. And then the inhale after that time breath hold shunts the nitric oxide into your lungs, and you get incredible gas exchange, which then produces oxygen and calms your mind. So that's how it works. It gets more oxygen to reach your brain and gets more oxygen into your blood. So that is many small breath holds. So I'm now going to pass it over to Jackie, who is going to demonstrate the hands cupping exercise, also known or used to be known as the brown bag.
Yeah, and interestingly, I can feel my hands warmer just having done many small breath holds there just for a few minutes. So for me, that is the proof in the pudding, so to speak. So yeah, we are really imaginative with breathing exercises in terms of naming. So we're going from many small breath holds to hands cupping face, which, as you can imagine, is kind of like it says on the tin. So Vikki is going to demonstrate for me here, so I don't have to speak through my hands. So this, as Vikki just said, is a bit like the brown paper bag exercise, but in some ways it's better because I don't know about you, but I don't tend to carry a brown paper bag around me in my back pocket. If you do, then that's great. But it's also more controllable because when you're breathing through your hands, you are able to move your fingers apart, and just, allow yourself to kind of titrate it in a way that works specifically for you, which, as we've been saying, is so, so important because Vikki and I have a lot of experience of long COVID, both from ourselves and the work we've done with other people, and all the training that we've done. But you are the experts of your own bodies. And I think that is so, so important to stress. So with this exercise, if you find that covering your face is triggering for you in any way, then don't do it. This may not be the exercise for you. So if you feel comfortable doing so, then join your hands and you can place them just over your face, as Vikki is very kindly demonstrating for me there. Make sure that you're being gentle with your face, resting it in a place that is comfortable for you. So if slightly wider is more comfortable than slightly narrower, again, you can just kind of experiment. So again, talking about safety in our bodies, which is so, so important. If you feel like this exercise isn't helping, or if even you feel like it may be hindering, then all you need to do is just remove your hands and go back to your normal breathing. So just breathe gently in and out through your nose into your hands. And why does this work? It's kind of similar to the many small breath holds. So when you inhale and then you exhale, what you're doing is pooling carbon dioxide in your hands. So then when you inhale again, you are rebreathing that carbon dioxide into your lungs. So the carbon dioxide in your lungs and then in your blood will improve blood flow, which will improve oxygen delivery to your brain, which will allow you to feel calmer. So that's what we want. We want our minds to feel calmer because that will help our bodies to feel calmer. So we are biohacking our biochemistry here in our body. And what we've been talking today about a load of stress, this will improve the body's ability to deal with stress because you are increasing your body's resilience. If you have high blood pressure, this is also a really good exercise for you. So there are studies which prove that this exercise will reduce blood pressure. So that is quite a cool thing as well. So if you've been doing this exercise while I've been talking, just check in with your body. So what are you noticing? Are you noticing things like increased saliva? Are you feeling like you need to swallow? And just a little anecdote to make you laugh. I remember when I was doing breathing to start with, and I started discovering some of these exercises that helped me. And I was doing a yoga nidra. I was lying on my back. I was doing nice, beautiful breathing, and it was really helping because it was helping so much that I started dribbling. So there you go. That's a beautiful mental picture for you. But you know what? It was disgusting, but also it was like, yay, this is working. Like this is literal proof that this is working. And I think that's so important, isn't it? You know, to have that proof, you know, to have that saliva, to have those warmer hands, to have those warmer feet, to have those tummy rumbles, to feel calmer, all of those things, because you can go, right, okay, this is actually working. This is something that I can use. So yeah, check in with your body. Are you noticing any of those things? And what did you notice about the two exercises that we've just done? Did you have a favorite? You know, because as Vikki was saying earlier, everybody's going to have their own favorites. Everyone's got their own ones that particularly work in certain situations. So yeah, you know, keep doing them and see how your body reacts.
So these are really great calming exercises to do prior to sleep. So Jackie talked a little bit about sleep, and it's important that we develop a pre-sleep routine with our breathing. So your breathing throughout the day with your nose is very important, but also getting your body ready to breathe at night through your nose is important. And some people need that down regulation, and doing things like many small breath holds before bed, or just some nasal breathing, and the hands cupping will all help you get into that parasympathetic nervous system, which will then get you to get a good night's sleep. And we touched upon it, but the other thing that we highly recommend is using the mouth tape. So the mouth tape we've done many videos on, but it is literally a piece of tape that you put over your lips that encourages your mouth to stay closed during sleep. It allows you to breathe out of your mouth if you need to, but it encourages that nasal breathing during sleep. And that's what we want to try to get to. Because this nasal breathing is going to be the foundation to your health. And getting a good night of sleep is also the foundation to your health. So if you nasal breathe during the day and then you revert to mouth breathing at night, you are going to negate the amazing benefits that you've achieved during the day. So remember, we talked earlier about this is the quickest way to change the biochemistry of your body. So we can get from that fight or flight, that anxious stress state. The quickest way to change your state is by changing your breathing, finding that exercise that works, and breathing in through your nose and out through your nose, either slowing your breathing down, doing the many small breath holds, hands cupping. It's just been shown that this is the right way that we should be energizing ourselves with your breath.
Yeah, I would also add about the mouth tape just before I carry on. Something that I found beginning with very difficult, the thought of covering my mouth just sent me into terror. So if you are in that category where you think, I don't think I could do that, the myotape, which Vicky is currently demonstrating, goes around your mouth, which might be a little bit less triggering, but also try out the mouth tape during the day. So put it on your mouth while you're I don't know, watching TV or having a rest or, whatever it is that you're doing during your day, and just pop it on and just get used to how it feels. And if it feels okay during the day, then you know that actually you're okay and you can sleep with it. But that's definitely something that I struggled with to start with. So in summary, nasal breathing and sleep really are the foundation of health and of healing. Actually, Vicky's basically just done this slide. I just realized.
I like
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah, you may prefer one exercise, but even if these two exercises don't work, then you can always focus on that slow nasal breathing because that will always help. But also that these interventions do need to be practiced. So practice them when you're feeling okay. And then you've got them in your toolbox for when you really need them. So when you do start getting those symptoms, when you do start feeling that panic, then when you do even have a very busy mind, that's when you really need those exercises and you can sort of draw on them as you need. So before we open the floor to questions, Vicky is just very briefly going to take you through a few options if anybody would be interested in working with us. We do offer a few things. And then, yeah, if you do have questions, feel free to start throwing them into the chat as you think of them, and we will do our very best to answer them.
Okay, so Jackie and I are actually in the middle of teaching a 6-week course to some of the people with long COVID. It's 12 sessions and it's very small groups. We've got less than 8 people in the group, and all the exercises that we're doing are tailored to people with long COVID. So it has opened Jackie and I's eyes to the diversity of symptoms, but also the diversity of breathing exercises that work with individuals with long COVID. So throughout these 12 sessions that we've been teaching, we've realized how individual we need to make breathing for you. And all of the sessions we record, we learn exercises, we practice exercises, we re-practice exercises, and we allow a lot of time for feedback because we want our clients to have success with this because we know what a huge difference it makes. We send out research articles, we send out worksheets, and we send out handouts of all the exercises. But I think so far, Jackie and I have covered probably 15 different breathing exercises for our clients. You've been exposed to 3 of them today, but we have got plenty more up our sleeve. The other thing, and I can speak from experience, is the community and support that these groups give. It absolutely is amazing that we're there to cheer each other on. In fact, it's given me goosebumps. People are so open to helping and sharing their experience with other people with long COVID. So they're teaching us things, we're teaching them things, but they're sharing with each other and they're connecting with each other outside of the groups. Now, breathing for long COVID is one thing, but this is also going to be a tool that you will learn that you can use for the rest of your life. So for me, I wanted to get back to exercise, and I'm able to walk sometimes. I use these exercises, but I know that it will serve me. It will serve me by teaching my family and my friends these exercises. So it is a win-win situation. Like I said, we've got to believe that we are all going to get through this. And these little tools are just an immense help when we are having a bad day, and also just to teach us to breathe correctly. So Jackie's going to pop something in the chat. The other thing, I think I'm talking over Jackie again, but we've been doing an advent calendar that we've had a huge amount of fun with, giving little tips for people with long COVID, and it's not just breathing. But if you join our Facebook group, you will pop in at day 5 and look at all the other videos, and just see something every day that pertains to long COVID.
Okay, so I've just dropped the link in the chat to sign up, or more information and to sign up for the courses. Of course, you can message us at longcovidbreathing@gmail.com if you have any questions about, well, anything. I mean, preferably breathing related, but if anyone wants to know what color socks I'm wearing, then it's pink. So please do be in touch. I've put our social media links on the screen as well. If you're wanting to see our advent calendar, you can see it on all 3 of those socials. But if you subscribe to the YouTube, then it will notify you each time one comes out. So you don't have to remember to go and look. And the Facebook group you can find through the Facebook page. So there's a link on there, I think, that says join community or something like that. I can't remember exactly because I don't have it in front of me. So you can, connect with us on all of those things and by the email address there. So I think maybe what I should do is remove the screen share, and then I can have a look, because I think there are a few questions in the chat that would be useful. So
yeah, I found one that I'm going to zoom in on.
Right, go for it.
Okay, so Claire asked a question. She's been doing the belly breathing for around 6 weeks, 4 times a day. And although she feels calmer, she hasn't noticed a reduction in long COVID symptoms. Now, unfortunately, long COVID has a mind of its own. And I think for myself, it took me almost a year before my relapses and symptoms began to diminish. So what we're trying to do here with these breathing exercises is, with long COVID, you learn to be patient, but you also have to be patient with the breathing exercises. So if you've been a dysfunctional breather, like me, for 50 plus years, then even though my biochemistry will change like that, it's going to take my body a while to catch up. So please stay with it, Claire, because you will eventually feel a reduction in the long COVID symptoms. I cannot tell you that the breathing will have a direct effect, but patience is something we have had to learn. And knowing that the breathing is doing you good, that's the win there. So when everything else goes awry, you've got your breathing. And I'll tell you something else. I see that you have noticed a reduction, but hopefully you haven't noticed that your long COVID symptoms have gotten worse. So sometimes we have to go on the little wins rather than the big things. But I just want to congratulate you on doing your belly breathing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think to add to that, I think long COVID, it's not a linear thing. I mean, I can speak for myself and I can speak to lots of other people that I've spoken with. And, it's so up and down. So you can be thinking, well, I've been doing my breathing for however long, and, this has happened and this has happened and this and happened. But I think for me, it was realizing how much worse it would have been if I hadn't have had the breathing, if I hadn't have had those tools to draw on. So that was definitely something that helped me as well. Everything I'm doing is helping, even though it doesn't appear to be all the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
There's
so
one more question I'm happy to head in on. Talking about using our diaphragm when we are breathing, and especially with doing those short breath holds. The short breath holds, we want to focus on the slow breath, or just using our nose. If we can get into our diaphragm, that's great, but it's not imperative to diaphragmatic breathe when you're doing the many small breath holds. Now, one of the issues that Jackie and I both see with our long COVID clients is that our diaphragm gets stuck, and it's due to long COVID. So one of the things that we share with our clients is ways to unstick our diaphragm and get more movement of our diaphragm up and down, but that's a very specific exercise. So for right now, it would just be breathing in and out of our nose with those small breath holds, and not worrying about how your diaphragm is moving, but just making sure that you're not actually doing that upper chest fast breathing.
yeah, again, it's coming back to what can we do, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of questions about mouth tape. So is there a mouth tape brand that you'd recommend? Personally, I just use the 3M tape that you can order off certain online websites for about £2 each, or possibly even like 3 rolls for £2, and each roll will last you like a long time. You can also buy myotape, which I think Vicky was just holding up a second ago. There you go.
Yeah,
And
that's
this
it.
goes around your mouth. So if you are not very comfortable with something covering your mouth, then myotape may be for you. We can find a link to drop in the chat, can't we? I think one of us could drop an affiliate link in there even. I think that saves
Yeah.
everyone money. So we could do that. If we can't find it in time, we will drop it in the email that we send out afterwards with the replay link. So I think that will save you 5% or something like that. So that's that one. And would you recommend the open style myotape rather than the X style mouth tape? That one really is going to be individual for you. So we played around with this. Sorry, my partner's just brought me dinner. Thank you. So yeah, different people will experiment with different things. I just go for straight across the middle. I'm fine with that now, but I wouldn't have been to start with. Some people like the sort of cross style thing. Some people go for sort of up and down. That's enough. I find if I do that, I dribble out the sides. So I'm thinking, well, I'm clearly not. Anyway, probably too much information there. So I think again, you can play around with it and find what works for you. Personally, I'm all for saving money, so if I can use the cheap stuff, that's great. But the myotape is really, really good as well.
I'm just going to hit on another question about sore middle backs when sitting up doing the breathing exercise. And it goes back to finding like a relaxing breath. So all of the breathing that we're doing should be relaxing. It shouldn't be a stressed breath. And I think sometimes because many of us have been what I call horizontal long COVID, so we're not used to sitting up. We've lost some of that core or intra-abdominal pressure that the diaphragm gives us. And even doing core and back exercises is not going to strengthen your diaphragm. It's not going to increase the movement of your diaphragm. So actually doing specific exercises, it's the Vikki, the personal trainer, talking here. In order to strengthen your diaphragm, you've got to do diaphragmatic breathing. And it may be better that you lay down to do it so that you have your back supported. So support your back, work on that diaphragmatic belly breathing, and see if that makes a difference. But like I said, if I wanted to improve my bicep, I would do bicep curls. If I wanted to improve my diaphragm, I would do diaphragmatic breathing, not working on core and back exercises. So that's just a kind of a little hint, but going down on your back to do these exercises is always an option, or finding a position that you're comfortable in, sitting in a chair with your back supported. The big thing is the breathing.
Yeah, I think we didn't mention that earlier, actually. You know, a lot of people with long COVID are spending a lot of time lying down in some form. So yeah, you know, the sitting up is not necessarily it's optional.
Yeah.
Word. I don't, there, someone asked for the Facebook page link, which I've just popped in the chat there. We will save the chat. So if there are questions that we've missed in there, then Vikki loves doing little videos to answer questions. I find myself thinking, oh my goodness, she's left another one in the drive that I need to upload. So she loves doing that, and so do I. It's just that I spend most of my time uploading Vikki's videos. So do follow us on social media, and if you have more questions, you can fire them to us, and we will do our best to answer them. So I think I have dinner waiting for me here, and we've been going for an hour and a quarter. So I think we should probably wind it up here. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. It has been such a joy to share our own experiences and everything that we have learned with you. We would love it if you wanted to come and join our courses. I dumped the link in the chat, but I will also send it out with the replay link. So don't hesitate to get in touch with us with more questions or anything like that. I think I'm just talking for the sake of talking now. So I think I'll probably just say thank you and good night.
And good night from me, and good
Yeah.
night from her.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks so much.